Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third Twitter chat. We are very happy to have everyone here today. And today we are going to be having a chat with parents, students, and our special guest, Mr. Christopher Skeet. So I will introduce everybody that's on our session today. So Christopher Skeet, who is our M&A of St. Rose.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry,
Yes.
we had a bit of a false start. The video wasn't coming through on the feed, so I'm gonna start the stream again.
You're gonna let me know?
Lower, Carolina.
Now you know how it feels, Carolina.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta take the engine reverse and start over, yeah.
It's not, I did it exactly. Oh, now we're live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third Twitter chat of our 4 series on online learning. I am Carolina Toteda, your host of your show today, and we will be discussing online learning with parents, students, and Christopher Skeet. So I'm going to introduce to you everybody on the session today. So we'll begin with Christopher Skeet, who is our M&A of St. Rose and Parliamentary Assistant to the Premier for Relations with English-Speaking Quebecers. Hi, Christopher. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you very much for having me. I'm always happy to come to a Learn event. I'm very fortunate to have Learn in my backyard. There's a lot of honor associated with that, so very happy to be here as always. And of course, I'm always especially happy to speak with Learn and about Learn because of the unique learning approach that Learn brings to the table. We're here to talk about online learning, so let me sorry tour seconds ago. But I have the opportunity doing my MBA right now, and because of COVID, I've had to switch the profile from a in-presence presentiel class to an online version. And one of my takeaways is you can't be successful in that if you don't alter the way that you teach the content. So if teachers are expecting to keep the same learning plan and lesson plan and adapt it to an online environment, my takeaway is that's not going to work. What you need to do is to have an online class that reflects the online reality, that maximizes and leverages the technology that you're using, while at the same time trying to make sure that people have a sense of what you're trying to do in the content. Now, of course, the challenge with online learning is always the level of autonomy that students might have, right? So it's something that because you're far away, you can't really follow and track as well students' comprehension and learning, which is why it's important for teachers to be more engaged. So my takeaway is, and I think Learn does this all the time, is to be engaging, to be participative, and to adapt the curriculum to the circumstance.
Thank you, Christopher, for your introduction. We're really appreciated. I'm going to continue our introduction on who else is going to be on our chat today. We have Catherine Korakakis, who is from the English Parents Committee Association. Andrew Ross, who is also from the English Parents Committee Association. We have 3 students joining us today that are actually taking our online classes with Learn. So we have Jacob, Casey, and Lalita. And of course, we have our moderator, Dr. Michael Caniel, CEO of Learn. So we will begin the session. Michael, I give you the floor and you can start asking your questions to Mr. Christopher Skeet.
Thank you very much. It's always an honor, first of all, to have Mr. Skeet with us here today, the parents, but especially the students, because, we always say it, but we really mean it. We're here for the kids, and everything we do is really intended to make your learning as enjoyable and as effective as possible. A couple of weeks ago, when we started our Twitter sessions, I spoke a little bit about the differences, as Chris was mentioning, between online and real-time face-to-face class. Fundamentally, it all comes down to good pedagogy. We've all been in classes face-to-face with teachers who have basically bored us to tears, and we haven't learned anything. The same thing can happen online. If it's done poorly, it's a total waste of time. Everything comes down to good pedagogy, and that's what we need to be focusing on. And I think this is exactly the message that Mr. Skeet was just bringing forward now. Christopher, I had a second question for you about that, because I think we have an understanding as to what you think about online learning. But So going into the school year coming up in September, we know that with social distanciation, things are going to be very different. You're going to have classrooms with, instead of 25, 30 students, they're going to have 12, 13, 14, 15 students. What do you say to these students going into, and parents going into the school year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I think people are going to have to adapt themselves. I mean, to expect our life to be the same, to bring upon the current situation with our yesterday's baggage, I don't think applies. So we're all going to have to be a little bit more creative in the way that we approach our problems, and we're all going to have to be a little bit more flexible in the way that we adapt ourselves. So, you know, it's going to be tough. It's going to mean that we're not going to be able to adapt ourselves the way that we want. It's not going to be an environment that we want. Teamwork is going to take on a different meaning, and the way that we interact with one another has to change. And that's the situation that we're in. It's just one of those circumstances that we have to adapt to. So I'm optimistic that we'll get it right. I think if everyone is of good faith and everyone's trying their best, we should be able to figure it out. I think the mistake would be to expect predictability in a situation that's totally new to us and novel. So I think what we could do is just keep our positive attitude and look for solutions and have a solutions oriented approach. And then I think if we do that, we should come out of it just fine, especially young people. Young people are always eager to adapt new ways of doing things. They're always more flexible to change, a little bit less averse to risks. So these are all things that work in favor of students being successful in the current environment. I'm optimistic as well that they'll be able to do it. And I'm also optimistic about the data that we're seeing emerging from the younger kids, right? Some of the data being given to us by scientists and also pediatricians suggests that, you know, there is a difference between being in the elementary school years versus high school years, and high school years versus university. So it's making sure that we understand the science behind that and make the appropriate decisions when the time comes.
Thank you. I think that's very well said. We have 3 students with us today, and I was hoping, Christopher, that you could ask them a little bit about their experience online. We've been doing this since 1999. We teach classes in chemistry, physics, basically all of the core subjects, and with great success. But it's kind of boring to always hear from us, you know. And hearing the student voice, I think, is really effective. So I thought maybe I'd give you a chance to ask them some questions and get some of their feedback as to what their experience was like.
Well, actually, yeah, I do have a question, because these are a bunch of brains on the phone. And for me, I've always been kind of jealous of people who are very successful in math. And I can't imagine doing a physics class or a chemistry class or a calculus class in a virtual environment. I'm very curious to see what their techniques are, because in terms of encadrement, I always require a lot to be successful. And science is particularly daunting and really requires you to be kind of autonome. So I'm very curious to see what their learning strategy is for learning hard sciences.
Fantastic. Good. Cassie, do you want to start off? Maybe give us your spin on this.
My spin is that I've seen it work, and parents have seen how interesting it is to have their kids online. They're just happy that they're actually learning. So for us, it's a positive thing that teachers lead the classes and that we have some, you know, some learning going on while we're all living this unprecedented time in history.
Yeah. And actually, I think I said Cassie and not Catherine, or
sorry.
But that's okay.
Because that's Catherine, but people know her as Kathy, so she probably heard.
Oh, my bad here. My bad.
Well, a very relevant, really relevant intervention, though. It was very useful.
Well, I think that look, we're all lifelong learners, so that's good. So maybe I can go over to Cassie and get your thoughts, Cassie.
This year was my first year with Learn, and I wasn't sure how it was going to be at first because, you know, online I've never been used to that. But honestly, online has been so much better than face-to-face. I think the resources given, you can work at your own pace, whether you're a visual learner or more of a textbook learner. It's all provided. There's memory tips. You could communicate with friends that you meet around the province of Quebec and with your teacher. So I loved online learning, and I'm excited to do more.
What subjects were you taking online?
This year I had taken SN4 with Mr. Lett, and next year I'll be taking SN5 math and
Fantastic, thank you. Jacob, how about you? What was it like for you?
Well, I've been with Learn for the past 2 years. I took math SN4, I took math SN5, physics and chemistry. Personally, I don't know exactly for chemistry and physics since I never took it real time with a real teacher in a school, but I can say I don't think I saw any difference. We were able to do all homeworks like if we were in person. I mean, teachers make voice threads, so you can watch it as much as you want to understand. And um, for labs, there's many resources that were given. We go on Gizmo, Explore Learning, Desmos, GeoGebra. There's a ton of applications online. So I really don't think that being online blocked me in any way whatsoever. I actually think it may help open some new doors that we don't have in class.
Fantastic. Did you have a chance to sit back and relax in class, or did your teacher have you working?
Usually you're always working at a normal pace, not too fast, but not too relaxed. You're always engaged in the class. Usually teachers try and keep you as much motivated and not too relaxed so you don't lose interest and stop paying attention.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jacob. Lalita, what was it like for you? Lalita?
Mic working?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
the dreaded mute.
All right, so this is my first year with Learn. I took math S4, and then I also took science and the environment and science and tech. Personally, I didn't feel like held back at all. I feel like I know so much, and like Jacob had mentioned, with all the resources and the labs and stuff, I really don't think you're missing out on anything. And it's different for sure, but I don't think it's any less than you have in a traditional classroom.
Was it a lot of work?
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and you definitely have to be on top of yourself and make sure you keep up with your homework, especially with having the flipped classroom. If you don't do your homework, then you fall behind in class. So keep up with your work and follow the schedule that the teachers gave. I think that's really important too.
Fantastic. Maybe just one last quick question for any three of you. Did you feel that it was, because very often we think of online learning as being cold and impersonal. Did you feel that it was like that? Was it cold and impersonal for you? Anyone can jump in.
I'll go. No, I think I made so many friendships throughout the province of Quebec. It was really fun to connect with people, also meet my teacher. I think it was so cool, and I've never been in a flipped class. And they used so many resources, like talking through Twitter. We also had Twitter chats to get to know everybody. And I felt so engaged, and I was never afraid to ask any questions or be myself.
Cool.
Nice.
Excellent. Anyone else want to add anything? Maybe just one last thing. Where are you located right now, Cassie? And then I'll ask Jacob and Lolita.
I live in Pointe-à-la-Croix, Quebec.
Could you repeat that?
I live in Pointe-à-la-Croix, Quebec, so in the Gaspésie.
In the Gaspésie. Okay, so you're not nearby. How about you, Jacob? Where are you located?
I'm in Bécomo on the Côte Nord, so on the other side of the river from KC.
Amazing.
Wow.
And Lolita?
I'm in Saint-Anisette, Quebec.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Like right on the U.S. border.
My gosh. Okay. So
Wow.
we've got three interesting representatives here from all over the province. Thank you very much for that. I think that getting the student voice and listening to what you have to say is so important. Christopher, do you have anything else? Because I know you're running here on a short time period. So I just wanted to know if you wanted to ask the students or even the parents anything else at this time.
Well, actually, I mostly just want to congratulate you guys because, first of all, perseverance is such an important thing. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if it wasn't for the fact that I just kept going. And I didn't know where I was going. I just kept going. And the proof is I'm still going. So the idea here is just, always just keep doing it and just keep doing you and keep your head down and keep working at it. And eventually you'll get there. And as I turn around and realize that I only have 3 more classes left in my MBA, I look back at the kid who failed grade 2, who almost failed grade 6, and who should have dropped out. And, I realized that, you know, if you just don't leave, just keep staying there, and eventually you'll get it done. So honestly, I want to congratulate you guys. It's not easy to be in the remote regions of Quebec and expecting to get an English education and trying to do well. So the fact that you guys are there, the fact that Learn is there to support you, it's just congratulations all around. I want to say that mostly.
Thanks so much, Christopher. I think that's such an important message. Hang in there. It's not always easy, but at the same time, it can be fun as well. So thank you so much. And as I said,
Yeah.
I don't want to impose any more on your time, but thank you.
Well, thank you for the
Christopher,
invite, guys,
joining
and
us.
take
Thank you
care.
so much for joining
always
us.
there.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. We're going to move over to the parents' questions. Carolina?
Yes. So actually, we're going to start with the first question is directed to students. Then we'll go on to the parents. So some people may think that online learning is not as hard or not a rigorous as face-to-face classes. And basically, we just want to really know, are you really learning? So I think you pretty much answered the questions earlier, but if you want to add something to it, Jacob, Casey, Lolita.
No, I think just the resources like Jacob had mentioned with the voice starts, it's basically where it talks about one certain subject and you can learn at your own pace, listen to it, go back, take notes, which helped me a lot. Keeping a book of notes that I was able to go through since it was a heavy course. And I think I relied on that a lot. That helped me.
Perfect. Thanks. Anybody else want to add to that? Like, you know, are you really learning? I mean,
Yeah, I would add a little bit.
Yeah.
Like she said, teachers encourage us a lot to take notes. I mean, at the beginning of the year, we literally had like a whole week where we learned how to write our notes.
Oh, wow.
So that really you get right on the good place for before starting the year. And I want to say, I don't think I'm behind on any students because teachers put everything for your homework so you can do it at your own space. And for students such as me who go maybe a bit faster than the group, you can sometimes even go a little further. Teachers can give you links to new things to learn so you can like try and enrich your learning. So you can try and go deeper and learn a bit more. So I found that really fun.
Perfect. Nice. Michael, do you have, how about?
Yeah, just again, as a little bit of a follow-up, did you have to do group work? Did you work in breakout rooms at all in your classes?
Oh, definitely. We did breakout rooms sometimes, like worked on a question with using our strategies that we had taught the day before. And we also did these group projects where we were each assigned something and we had to present to the class together.
Cool. And again, so it's not just you alone. What about you, Lolita? Did you have a group work as well?
I had group work, I think, pretty much in every class, multiple different things. Unfortunately missed one of the things in math, but you did go into breakout rooms to work on problems, to be able to discuss things together, to really get to, you know, hear other opinions on a problem. So if you can't figure something out, there's someone else there. In science, we've worked on labs together, like online labs, which is still really fun. And you get to, you know, put us in a breakout room, we share a document, you get to go over it with each other. And I think it's really fun.
Mm-hmm. Jacob, did you work in groups as well?
Yeah, I worked in groups in every single one of my classes. I know in physics and chemistry, my teachers loved it. Before a test, they would ask us a couple questions and we'd make a group answer key. And then other people could do our problems and we did theirs to try and practice before the test. So every month we did pretty much a group work.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really good to hear.
Perfect.
Carolina?
So actually, Michael, yeah, we received some comments for Q1 for the first question. We have here a comment from Ara Labonte. On the contrary, at first, most students find online learning to be much harder to be successful. That is, unless the course is designed as only content delivery. Learning is much more than information delivery. And we have another comment regarding the first question from Lothridge Lane. As an educator, online learning is just as hard, if not harder, than a face-to-face class. I have also been participating in online classes for at least 6 years, and as long as you are actively applying yourself and participating, then you are learning. And another reply we received, that's like saying rollerblading. It's not as hard and rigorous as ice skating. Online learning may use different tools and methods, but learning is just as meaningful. You get what you put into it. Wow, these are great, great sharings. Yeah, definitely. So do you want to go on to question number 2 for parents?
Yeah, okay, good. Well, again, we'd like to know what parents have to say about what they think it takes to make online learning successful. And what are the responsibilities, as you see from a parent's perspective, teachers and parents' responsibilities in setting up a proper working setting for online learning? And if I could ask Kathy, sorry about that, Kathy.
I'm sorry.
No, not at all. It's cool. All right. So what do you think, Catherine?
Well, I think that some of the things that we've seen that have worked is just to set the mindset of the students, having them put on their uniform before they start learning, or their color code or whatever, but really, making your child ready to learn. They know they put that uniform on, they're sitting in front of their computer, it's learning time. Another tip that we had was take away all distractions, close televisions, take away iPads, cell phones, just take those away, let them focus. Comfortable seating is important, the ability to be able to hear and also being heard by the teacher. We had some parents saying, make sure that, you have your speakers set up right? The chair, lighting is important so they can see. So it's really about setting an environment for your children to be ready in their mind and also physically ready to learn, and have their stuff nearby, have their pencils nearby, their binders, their books, so they're not looking. So when they sit, they have no distractions, they're just ready to go. So those are some of the tips that we found that really help just start setting the space and the mindset for learning.
I think that's really important. When they're sitting there for long periods of time, sometimes they need to be reminded to get up and move around, and it's okay, because you're right, sitting in front of a computer can be difficult at times, and a little bit of taking a pause in there. So if you have an hour or two online, taking some regular consistent breaks is good, and if it's comfortable, it's a good thing. And if you have kids other kids in the house, one child is easy, but if you have multiple kids in the house, rather, you got to keep them in line as well.
Yeah, so different rooms helps. Also, our experience has been that the way that the teachers have set it up is actually brilliant. They'll have a class between half an hour to an hour. There's a pause. Give students the chance to get up, go to the bathroom, do all that kind of stuff, move around a little bit, then sit back down to read. But obviously, when you have multiple children, as is my case, and I also work full time, you all kind of have to, go to different rooms, set up the space. But if you're organized ahead of time, it helps. It really helps to have, to get it done.
Yeah. And then we don't expect parents to be the teachers either, I think, but they do have to play a role in setting the stage for learning as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Carolina?
So, yeah, we actually got a comment for the second question that we just asked. So in order to make online learning successful, as a teacher, I feel it is important I allow students to feel their voice is valuable. So you matter, making sure that the students matter. So that's important, obviously, from a teacher's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to go to question number 3? We'll go to question number 3, directed again to parents. What are the expectations that can help parents evaluate if their children are doing what is required in the curriculum by the Ministry of Education, by MEES? So Michael?
Yeah, clearly sometimes parents they feel if they're online, are they really learning? Are they actually sticking to the curriculum? Are they getting through the course as they need to be? And that's a fair concern for parents. Andrew, what's your view on this?
Well, Michael, I think there's an expectation that parents remain a strong partner in their child's education. I think that much is clear. And much as you mentioned earlier, they play an important role in ensuring that children can remain focused on learning in a home environment. But that doesn't mean that they should be taking on the role of evaluating work that's being done, or taking on the responsibility of ensuring that work conforms to the curriculum. That's not the parent's role in this type of situation. And parents wouldn't be expected to do that in a traditional classroom environment. So I don't believe that it's necessarily appropriate in an online learning environment. But that doesn't mean that parents don't have a role to play. It's up to them to be informed about what is supposed to be taught. And that means being in contact with teachers on a periodic basis, discussing their child's learning and progress and finding out what they can do to help. And it's up to teachers to make sure that those course outlines are available, much as you would see consistently in post-secondary education, post-secondary classes. So it then becomes up to the teachers and school administrators to ensure that the curriculum is being followed. That's part of that social contract that exists when it comes to public education. So there needs to be an understanding on the part of parents, but also on the part of teachers about the different roles that people should be able to play, and that they really shouldn't cross over that much.
Mm-hmm. It's a very valid point. I think we very often talk about the importance of the teacher-student relationship. However, the teacher-parent relationship is critical as well as part of this whole support structure, follow-up to it all. And do you feel that, again, since the whole the COVID and quarantine, do you feel that you've had been able to maintain that kind of relationship with your children's students, or that if it happens in the schools that you're aware of?
Well, it's been a challenging situation with COVID, of course, and there was a lot of adjustment that needed to take place when quarantines began, and figuring out how that interaction would take place between parents and teachers. And I can say from my own experience that at the beginning it was a frustrating transition. But I think that now that we've had an opportunity to adjust a little bit more, and that classes have become a little bit more formalized in the last several weeks and the last month or so, that is improving. And I know that I am in close contact with many of my children's teachers to make sure that things are moving smoothly. And that is an important contact to be able to have.
Absolutely agree. I think that's an excellent point. Thank you, Andrew.
So we have some comments that came in. Michael, did you want to have is there any other contributions you wanted to add to?
No, I'd like to hear the comments,
Yeah,
Carolina.
sure. Perfect. So we have comments from question number 2 regarding the mechanisms in order to make online learning successful. Someone answered, know how to use your own device. This has been the biggest issue so far. There needs to be time to teach kids how to properly use what they have. Recognizing the smaller the device, the functionality for classwork is less. Another comment was open communication between parents and teachers should be available to answer questions, parents to support their students in online learning. We have another comment regarding this. As a parent, I like to bring snacks and treats to my daughter while she is in online class. I stay off the camera though. I just want to express that I've got her back.
Very good. I want to go back to the one of the comments about the devices, the small devices. I think that's such an interesting point, an excellent point. Clearly, if you're working off a laptop or desktop, it's a lot easier and you're able to do a whole lot more. That's not always possible, though, for some students. And they might only be able to work off a small tablet or a very small tablet, or even off their cell phone. There's still possibilities there that can happen. There's micro learning where you can have like a 5, 10, 15-minute learning session followed by certain activities that would be useful. But you're right, you've got to come to the point where you know the technology so that it becomes transparent. To us, and that's just as we're doing right now, after a while you forget you're on Zoom, you forget you're in the netherworlds here of the internet. You're actually interacting with people, and you forget all that. And that's the object, but you can't get to that unless you're able to open up your Zoom platform, unless you're able to open your computer and use it properly. It's up to the people designing the courses, though, to try to make it so that, knowing that the students don't all have the same technology, that they can address a lot of these needs in the various ways. But that certainly is a challenge. But technology, when done properly, you forget about it. It's our IT manager. We go to him when we have problems. We don't go to him when things are going well. And so that's the whole notion of technology. Yes, you got to get it, handle it quickly. But the other thing about that, incidentally, is that you don't have to master it completely to start with. It's like anything else. You're using Word or Excel or any of these other platforms. It's with practice that you learn to perfect it. But you have to be patient. I think Christopher Skeet talked about perseverance. You got to hang in there through it all.
Don't give up. That's right. It's important to have all these platforms optimized when and these devices be optimized when they're using the devices. So we have another comment here for question number 3 regarding the expectations. So parent guides along with student guides are one important step, but clear communication of student expectation in a shared space that parents have access to is also important. So this brings us to our next question, question number 4, which is directed to students. How well are you getting to know your teachers?
And what a good question that is, because John Hattie, who's did a meta studies on those factors that influence student success. The first number 1 was how the student sees themselves. The second factor that influences student outcomes and performance is really the teacher-student relationship. And I'd like to know from our 3 students here today, how well did you get to know your teachers, and what was it like? Did you feel that you had a relationship, a student-teacher relationship with them? Maybe I'll start with Jacob this time.
Sure. I mean, personally, I find that with Learn, I've got the best relationship with my teachers than any other class. I got to know them a lot more than in normal class in school. I mean, Twitter chats help a lot because we have fun for half an hour, like every couple of months. So you learn a bit about your teachers and you have fun. Also, one thing that really helped is in my classes, teachers like to put an intro page. So it's just like a picture they took that morning of a bird, or a trip they took a few months back, or even sometimes it's just pictures that us, the students, sent to the teacher, and then we're just all sharing it with the whole class.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a little conversation for 5 minutes and we get to know each other. It's really fun.
Yeah. Lalita, what about you? Did you get to know your teachers, and did you feel your teachers got to know you?
Yeah, I actually feel I got to know my teachers really well. There's so many, I mean, meeting with someone every day, even though it's online, like it's still an interaction that you're having. And they would never fail to ask how you're doing or how your weekend went. And that was always really nice. We could talk about our weekend, how we're doing, that sort of thing. Like Jacob mentioned, the Twitter chats were great because you get to know fun little things like favorite movie or favorite holiday dessert or something like that. And that was fun. Another thing that really helped for me was the private chat in Zoom and also DMs on Twitter. Because that way you can talk to your teacher more personally without the class watching. So you can get very personal. If you have something that's going on or you weren't feeling well, you can always contact them through that.
That's a really good point. And you're right, you can private message in Zoom. And sometimes I know that in a regular face-to-face class, students may be hesitant to ask a question because they don't want to look like a sir, miss, I didn't get it. But now in a private message, you can say, can you go over that again, please, and explain it because I didn't get it. And that's a really, really cool feature of doing it online. And sometimes one of the big advantages of being online. Cassie, how about you?
Definitely the Twitter DMs helped me a lot. Miss Gillette, my teacher, she would always ask me how I'm doing, or we would send her a picture of our work every night. She would give me feedback. If I wasn't feeling well, I could tell her that maybe I couldn't do all the homework that night. She was always ready to understand. She always motivated me, and I feel like I connected greatly with her. I also sent her a card through the mail for Christmas. So I feel like that was a fun little way to get to know her also.
So
Very,
sweet. What
that's
a
really,
wow.
really
That's so
cool.
nice.
But yeah,
That's really nice.
Yeah. Well, one of the funny little things is that when I was teaching many years ago, I would come across a student in a grocery, and while I'd be doing the grocery, and they'd say, "Hey, sir, what are you doing here?" And you realize wait a minute, I'm a human being too, and I eat and I need food to sustain myself. So it's good if they're sharing pictures and they're showing a little bit about their own personal lives. I think it's a wonderful thing. Maybe just on that point, did you feel they cared about you? Like, I mean, as not just as students, but as people, because for us, that's an important feature. Anyone want to just jump in here?
Enormously. Like, if I wasn't, maybe if I wasn't much engaged that day, she would ask me if everything was okay. Every day she would put a little quote on the board, just to motivate us and inspire us, and that helped a lot.
Wow.
Nice.
So cool. So cool.
Great.
Love hearing that.
So did you, is there anybody else that wanted to add anything to that? No, we're good. We have some comments that have come in since our last ones regarding question number 3. No, actually, sorry, we already got that one. Okay, clear and regular communication is key as always. So yes, we all know that communication and very clear communication is important. So everybody's on the right path and we're all on the same page. Teachers and parents, communications is key. That's another comment that came in from Pro Montreal Entrepreneurs, Catherine PME. We have here another comment for Q3. Okay, has exposed a clear gap between how or the social emotional connections required to foster effective engaging learning are managed by some who are not familiar with the online learning environment. So that's also another comment that came in through our Twitter chat. So we'll begin going to the next question addressed to parents. Are special needs students at a disadvantage if this type of platform exists? What is put in place for students with special needs for online learning? How can they benefit from online learning?
Wow, that's a really good question, and there's no, and I think it's a concern for a lot of parents. Kathy, can you maybe give us your view on all this, please?
Sure. You know, special needs children are for parents are a particular concern, just because we don't know how they will react. However, to this type of learning. However, we found some tips and tricks that have kind of helped during this period that we think are worth mentioning. One of the tricks we found was to teach parents of special needs students and older special needs students how to switch from speaker view rather than gallery view, to just keep them less distracted. Also, we found that smaller groups for children with different diagnosis with special needs helps them. Another thing that we thought was really great was CCWs having a private Zoom meetings. That also helps kind of reassure the students. And also when you do have a class and you're, in the English system, it's great because all our special needs students are integrated. Once the class begins and everybody has their marching orders, what's great is you can have a breakout room and then you can go with your students to that breakout room. For parents though, what's important is that, many times, teachers will say, is there anything we can do for you? And this is not necessarily helpful. What's more helpful is to be specific with how they can help us. That way we know what to ask for and how to help our children.
There's no question. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And you really do need someone who maybe is specialized in this particular area and field to guide you in all of this. We've had programs in the past where we've worked with speech language pathologists, and because in many of our schools, the speech therapists are not able to reach all the students. They get their diagnosis, and then their treatments only start 6, 8, 9, 10 months, even a year later, simply because there's a shortage of them and they can't get to them all. So we found that online it's worked. Have you ever had any experience with any of, again, a speech therapists or any other behavioral, or not just behavioral, but other special needs issues? Any come up?
Yes, my son has special needs. So of course, any therapist, worker, you name it, doctor, we've seen them all. We've been through them all. We haven't had the opportunity to do any of that online, to be quite honest. But the more that I think of it, the more I don't see why it wouldn't work. We've had now the experience for the last month of online learning, and it's been great. So I think that, I don't see why it wouldn't work. I actually think it would help them, because right now, since March, we've had no therapy, none whatsoever. And that's, I'm sure I'm not the only parent in the same boat. And then what happens with a special needs kid is, if you don't keep up with the therapy regularly, they regress. So then it takes even longer to help all that, realign all that. So that would be great. I think it would be definitely worth looking into.
Well, we've had students actually in our classes who are on the autism spectrum, and you're right. You do need to address their needs in a very particular way, but it's worked for them in some cases actually even better than a regular classroom, where there are multiple distractions and all kinds of issues that can impede their learning. So I can, like all things done well, it can work, but it's not a panacea. I always stay away from giving that image that anything and everything can be done. Sometimes it just can't be done. It has to be on a one-to-one basis. Carolina?
Yes, I have a reply that we received for question number 3. Here in Georgia, sorry, I totally interpret your Quebec Twitter chat. We provide a detailed checklist that we push out to both parents and students to help them stay on track of what they should be doing. So that's great. That's that's a good way of making sure that the students are getting their information and getting everything done, and good feedback, good communication between teacher and parent.
Yeah.
So we have also another comment here. So cool to hear online students share your experience in getting to know your teachers. I really appreciate your insight. I guess everybody loved the different stories that our students had to say, and the fact that Casey sent a nice Christmas card to her teacher. That's very nice. Nice sharing these beautiful stories from that our students are tonight with us.
Carolina, I just wanted to add one thing. A person from Georgia who talked about the checklist. I think that's absolutely critical, that you need to have, and this is where good online planning is required. You do need to have checklists so that you can monitor the progress. And the whole feedback process is absolutely essential. You can't go, and I think this is one of the big advantages of doing things online, is that you can provide a lot more feedback, and the feedback can be more immediate. And as we all know, and the research clearly demonstrates this, regular, ongoing, and quick feedback, and the students benefit enormously from that.
Perfect. So we'll go on to question number 6, which is for the students. Would you recommend online learning to other students? $1 million question.
Lalita, would you recommend it to other students?
Absolutely, I would, 100%. For me personally, I loved it so much. I had a great year in learning. You get so many resources, and there's such quick communication with the teacher. With sending your homework at night, and you could get a response that night or early the next morning before you even wake up, which is crazy. And it's overall just a really nice experience, not only with the learning and stuff, but getting to meet people from all throughout the province, which was really cool. And it was really a community with Learn, of people who were passionate or had goals that involved, math and science and that sort of thing. So all people who wanted, good marks and working hard. So I think it created a really nice atmosphere.
So cool.
Nice.
Thanks, Lalita. Jacob, would you recommend online learning to other students? And maybe are there some students for whom this wouldn't work from your point of view?
I would recommend it really for most students. I mean, sure, maybe a couple people could maybe not be perfect for them, but I'm not really able to say which one it would be. I personally had great experience, and I think it's pretty good for anybody who has good autonomy and is able to keep themselves a bit on track, because it's sure you're alone in your own home, so you have to be able to say, I'm doing my homework now and I'm going to class. If you don't want to, well, it's just not going to work. So you need to have a student who wants to do it a bit in the first place. But like Lolita said, teachers answer on Twitter, so it's really great. And just to add, also teachers are able to give like tutoring times. So sometimes I don't understand something, I write to my teacher, she'd say like, come on into Zoom at 3:30, I'll be there. And I just meet with her alone. She explains it, I do the homework, and everything goes great.
Fantastic. Cassie, what's your experience like? And would you refer online learning to other students?
Of course. I think for me, it also helped me learn so much skills that I didn't know I had. It also helped me become more confident in my own work. I think you have to definitely be on game and have perseverance, which helped me a lot. I would always have like a checklist. I know this is what I have to do tonight. I'll get this done as soon as I get home, and I'll be ready for tomorrow's class. Also, the friendships, like I was mentioning, I made so many amazing people, even from Ide Madame, all over the place. And I even met some in person. I've met Jacob before, like on a school trip. So I think it's incredible. I think I personally would love online learning more than a face-to-face class.
All right, so listen, I have a very, very important question. Where do I send the checks to you three students? Because your endorsement, like I want everyone to know that we did not prompt you to say any of these things. We did not. These are genuine and honest responses. So I'm listening to this, and I have to tell you that I'm blown away. And I'm the CEO of this organization. We've been doing this for 15 years, but the people from whom we took this up, they've been at it for even longer, since 1999. We've won all kinds of awards, but there's nothing that's more rewarding than to hear coming out of your voices, to hear how it's been such a great experience, and it's very inspiring. So I'm going to stop before I get emotional here.
Students are our best ambassadors, Michael.
No kidding. No
wow,
kidding.
this
It's
is
amazing.
like worth so much.
Yeah.
Did you want to give your contribution, Michael, on about this question on if you would recommend online learning? I know it's not gonna.
Well, when it's done, first of all, online learning is a very, very broad area. I mean, you can have online learning, and some people call it distance education, where it's almost like send the textbook to someone, read chapter 1, answer the questions, send them back. I mean, that actually can work for some students. Those are the students who are highly motivated, high self-regulatory skills, and they represent a small fraction of our student profile, student population. Most students require, and I include myself in this, interaction. When I heard before, they were talking about going into breakout rooms, sharing and getting different ideas and working through problems. This is at the core of our curriculum, social constructivism. It's how we learn through interaction with others. So done properly, online can be enormously effective. But as I said, just like anything else, if it's done poorly, if what we do is send a video on and have the students look at the video for 10, 15 minutes, answer questions, send back the questions, you don't get the chance to create a relationship. You don't get to know anyone. It's not the way we really effectively learn. Can we learn that way? Yes, but it's not the best way, and it doesn't suit most of our learners.
Thank you, Michael. We received a comment regarding question number 5 in terms of how special needs students can benefit from online learning. So we have here, Learn Tutoring works with many special needs students in online learning. The platform works very well as we support students one-on-one. So yes, definitely our Learn Tutoring service caters to all students, and we have many special needs students that use that service. So
well over 10,000 sessions this year, so that's a good sign. Exactly.
Perfect. So we're going to go on to our next question, which is for parents. Is online learning a viable option? Does it really work? Yes, it might be similar to another question we have earlier, but I think we need to get some input of parents and see what they feel about this.
Andrew, what's your view on all of this? Is it a viable option for education going forward?
Well, I think from a parent perspective, it can work. Online learning can work, but it needs to be understood that the style of teaching must change if we're talking about it at the scale that we're experiencing right now in the COVID context. Now, we just talked a lot about this, but engagement becomes a lot more difficult in an online setting for many kids, and students can become distracted much more easily. So the key is to ensure that the content remains fresh, and there's a lot of opportunities for back and forth interaction between teachers and students. And it's really reassuring to me when I hear Lolita and Cassie and Jacob talk about the interaction that they have with their teachers, and how much of an influence it has on what they feel about their education and what they're getting out of their classes. Clearly, we cannot approach online learning in the same way as you would an adult seminar, where you have like long-winded lectures and students stare at a screen. That's just not going to work with the vast majority of students. So I would think short, frequent classes will work better in the long term, with many opportunities for students to contribute to the conversation. That'll make it more of a team effort. And the more that you feel like you're working in a team, the more likely it is that those students are going to feel engaged and actually retain what they're getting out of it. But the important thing is that technology must also be consistent. And that's one of the challenges that we're seeing in a lot of cases with online learning right now, and that not all families have access to consistent high-speed internet, especially when you're dealing with homes with multiple children trying to attend online classes at the same time. They have difficulty. The platforms also need to be consistent, because in a lot of cases you have teachers that may use one platform, and then a student needs to move to another platform for the next class, and that can be an additional barrier as well. And most important is equipment, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier as well. It's not just computers, it can be the chairs, it can be the headphones, it can be anything that makes it easier for children to be comfortable and focused on what's being taught. If those challenges can be properly addressed at the scale that we would need right now, and parents can receive the support necessary to help make that happen in a home environment, there's chances for great success in online learning, but we need to be able to fill in those gaps.
I think those are excellent points, that there are already enough challenges going online. If your technology, your platforms, and all of those things that are there to support the learning process and create that learning setting, if they're not in place, and if the students are not, as you said, going from one class to another using different technologies and platforms, it really can be an issue. And that's part of the challenge that our community has to come and address going forward. Working on a committee right now with the ministry, and even inside the ministry, there's no consensus. So you can see that the problem is it will fall in front of the students, and they'll be using different platforms, different devices, and it's going to be a challenge for them. Absolutely. So I think, Andrew, your points are absolutely well taken.
Michael, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that? No?
Well, I think we really highlighted all of those things, and just to keep in mind something that Andrew just said, that we can't look at this and have students walk into an online environment where they're going to be in a seminar situation where they're lectured for 45 minutes, an hour at a time. It doesn't work. And by the way, it doesn't work in a face-to-face setting either. We know that when you're lectured, you don't remember very much. I forget the exact percentages, but after a week, you only remember 15, 20, 30%. And then after a few months, you've forgotten most of it. And in fact, they've tested students in June who get great marks, the 80s, 90s, and so on and so forth. And then they retest them again in September. And most of them end up struggling to try to pass, because if they've been taught in a lecture format, the retention levels are very different. It's completely different though when you're working in groups and you're developing a competency, as exactly as our three students have mentioned. So learning happens primarily by doing. Just look at how kids at the age of 4 to 5, they're learning like sponges, are absorbing everything, but they're learning by doing.
Thanks, Michael, for that. We have some other comments that just came in. So we have here for question 6 in terms of if you would recommend online learning to other students. I have noticed many students excel in online learning. They are able to learn at their own pace and not have the fear of being right or wrong in a class discussion in front of their peers. I would definitely recommend online learning. And I think we've solved this comment in the previous chats, Michael. You know, students being, you know, either shy, afraid. So yeah, I think it's a valid point and valid comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Distance certainly makes us all a little braver. And incidentally, if I ask the 3 students here, if they keep their video cameras on when they're in class, and I'm almost certain that they don't, in most cases, because they don't need it. And the ones who push for the video component are the adults. But most of the time, students are very happy to do voice and chat. And it's amazing how well they're able to do in that particular environment just using voice and chat. So yeah, we have to look at this from their perspective and to see what works.
We have another comment. The better question is, under what conditions does online learning work for each student? The same questions apply in any classroom. It can and does for many if it is designed accordingly.
Well, Dr. Labonte keeps asking all these great questions, and of course he's right. What do we have to do to meet those individual needs? How do we go about it? At the heart of all this is that we're supposed to be personalizing learning. Cassie is not Jacob, and Jacob's not Lolita. They're all different. They're individuals, and we need to treat them that way, and respect and understand that their learning is different one from the other. So I think that's an excellent point that Dr. Labonte brings up.
We received another comment for our recent question on if online learning is a viable option. Yes, it is viable. And yes, it works. We are going through some growing pains under the present way, but we have been launched into it. We can and will get better at online learning. Like Christopher Skeet said, perseverance, right? Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
We have another comment for the question number 7. As a PE teacher online, this is something that students enjoy. They are free to choose what options they do for their activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that PE teach, physical education? Yeah.
Yeah, phys ed.
Phys ed. We don't often think of phys ed online, but in fact, there are lots of ways that it can be done and done effectively. And I know of a number of schools in the United States and virtual high schools where phys ed is actually integrated right into it, and they're doing it online. So it's hard to believe, but yeah, it's happening, and it's happening very successfully.
So we come to our last question of the chat. How difficult is it to implement an online teacher platform? So this is a question that was given to us by the parents. They were just speaking with Catherine. She wanted to know, like, how difficult is it to implement something, that teacher platform? Michael, do you want to give your reply since?
I think it's been said quite a bit already, but I'll just repeat. Yeah, you need the right technology. You need to have all of the tools in place. But even once you have all that, you're just now, it's like you've entered the amusement park, and you're ready to play. But the truth of the matter is that it's what goes on once you're in there that counts. I'll go back and repeat what I was saying before. Walk into many of our high schools, and the desks are still pointing to the front. And they're pointing to the front because our teachers are talking to our students, not with our students. They're not breaking them up into groups. They're not doing a lot of active work. That's not effective. It's the same thing online. If we have all the right technology, so blah, blah, blah. It's secondary. I don't like to talk technology because it misleads people to thinking, well, now that I've got all the right tools, and this is part of my discussion with the ministry right now, we can have all the right tools, and they're essential. We need to have them. I'm not saying diminishing that point, but that's the starting point. We're now, that's just brought us to the starting line, and now we have to know what to do once we're in there. And we've talked about engaging the students cognitively. We have to create that social presence where they're interacting. We have to, and of course, we want to make sure that they're learning. But learning, incidentally, requires effort. No effort, no learning. That's the a prime rule here. It can be enjoyable, but there has to be effort. And so a lot of work in putting together the whole. It's not the platform. I would think of it more as a program, a process.
Thank you, Michael. Does anybody have any other anything that you'd like to add or any comments?
I'd like to ask something.
Yes, Catherine.
So we hear this, you know, there was all this talk about whether teachers should be leading, you know, online learning, or if students should be doing it by themselves and looking at some video. I'd like to hear from you, because you know, I have my opinions, but I'd like to hear from you. What do you think is better? Is a static video better, where a child just goes on, looks at the video, and then does work, or having a teacher there leading? What is your opinion?
Catherine, here are the facts. When we watch television, all right, and you're going to say it's not the same thing, but it is the same. And we're looking at a screen in a passive fashion. What happens is that the light that we're receiving actually starts to generate alpha brain waves. The alpha brain waves are those brain waves that we feel in the first stages of sleep. In other words, it puts us to sleep. It's not my opinion. These are facts. And so the truth of the matter is, if I'm watching something passively, for sure, I'm not going to be learning much. And if you say to me, I got to watch that video and then answer some questions, you're going to be able to do a little bit of that mechanical rote work for a while, but you don't remember anything. Again, keep in mind, how do you learn? In the first Twitter chat we had, I talked about when I was in high school, I did a science fair project on tetrahedral bonding in carbon molecules. Now, I don't remember anything else that I did in my math class. I don't remember anything, but I remember my science fair project. It's about the only thing I remember from chemistry and physics in high school, because I was doing something. The rest of the time, I was just, you know, like an empty vessel being filled up with facts and then spitting them up at exams. I learned by doing. So, and this is, again, I want to make clear, research is unequivocal on this. It's not like they've done enough studies to demonstrate you learn by doing. And that's the key. So it does require a lot of work. Not everyone wants to put the time and the energy into putting together online classes that engage the students. What Cassie and Lolita and Jacob are talking about are classes where the teachers are master teachers who know how to organize their classes and who know how to engage their students. We see some teachers right now going from the classroom onto the online world, and they're doing their best. This is not a criticism of them, but they don't know how to teach online. They're just thrown on there, say, here, you know how to use Zoom, now you're an online teacher. We call that emergency remote teaching. And I'm not blaming the teachers. They're doing their best, but it's not very effective. So we're looking at putting together with the ministry training programs that will help our teachers do it properly. But your point is 100% well taken, and I can't agree with you more.
Thanks.
Well, this brings us to the end of our show today, and I'd like to thank everybody here. So I'd like to thank Catherine, Andrew, Jacob, Casey, and Lolita for joining us, and thank you to Mr. Christopher Skeet for joining us earlier during our chat. We really appreciate all your time for joining us today, and thanks again, Michael, for your contributions as well. We invite everybody to join us next week, next Tuesday, June 16th, when we will have two leaders, experts in the industry, the CEO of Canadian e-learning network, Dr. Randy Labonte, which I think you've probably seen a couple of his comments during today's chat, and Dr. Michael Barber, Associate Professor of Instructional Design for the College of Education and Health Services in the University of California, will join Dr. Michael Canuel as guests. So please do join us for our last of our 4-part series all about online learning. Yes,
Carolina, if you want to hear what's going on in the rest of Canada, what's happening in Ontario or Nova Scotia or in Alberta, these guys know what's happening across Canada, and they can give you a perspective. How do we compare in Quebec to Ontario? I mean, compare, what are they doing in Ontario? And what are they doing in the other provinces? I think it'd be really worthwhile to hear this, because very, very often we We think sometimes like we're the center of the universe. We're not. And we've got a lot of catching up to do in certain places, but we're doing other things very well as well. So I really encourage you to come next week and hear what these two brilliant minds have to say.